Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about simple present. So I start off my class by asking one of the students, or all the students at one at a time, and I say, what do you do every morning, something like that, and what do you do, what do you usually eat, or what do you do to kill the times, spare times, what do you do when you're having a family dinner, something like that. So simple present is one of the most common ones and the easy one, but a lot of people have misconceptions on simple present. So simple present is not always about a habitual action, but this one we're going to talk about right now, and habitual action. So by asking students or their habitual activities, something like that, so this actually introduce simple present to the students supplementary, and so they won't be feel something like intimidated, they won't feel fear about this one. So habitual actions. And moving on, after having all the students speaking up, I go for the presentation. So the first things that I do is to show this pattern. It looks stressful, it looks so complicated, but it's actually easier. It's easier than how it looks. Okay, so the first I introduce all the patterns here. The subject for want, as, for he, she, it, and object and adverb if you have an adverb. So second one for the negative subject, do, does, not, and object and adverb. So yeah, it looks complicated, it looks so hard, people would be confused, and it's confusing indeed. So what if we put it in sentence? Will it confuse or not? Still confusing or not? So subject like I eat, I eat bananas. Okay, something like that. She doesn't. She subject doesn't eat. Something like that. Okay, that's a simple present. I doesn't she eat. Okay, that's a simple present used. And these are this pattern is actually a verbal sentence, something that we do physically. That's a simple verbal sentences. So the nominal sentence would be easier. So we're going to just learn to students by asking. By reviewing this one, so the nominal sentence actually about is are. So I'm sick. Okay, she is under the weather. So that's simple present because we use verb is are. Okay, so but we're focusing on simple presence, especially in the verbal sentence. Okay, next moving on. These are the presentation that I use. So I introduce all the patterns, all the time signals to students, like usually, generally, and normally use simple present. So I usually eat breakfast at 9 o'clock. Okay, that's a very simple one. So we use simple present pattern when talking about usually, generally, normally, and so on. Commonly. Not a common way. Okay, every. We're talking about every. So we use simple present as well when talking about every day, every hour, every morning, every month, every second. We use simple present. Example. She laughs every morning. No, she laughs every hour, let's say. She laughs every hour. She laughs every time. Oh yeah, every time. She laughs every time she watch cat movie or something like that. It's possible, let's say. So we use simple present when talking about every. Next, often, frequently, never, sometimes, now and then. Now and then, okay? We don't say and, but now or then. We use the simple present as well. Okay, after this presentation, the next activity is the practice. Okay, so understanding material, but let's say taking in all the materials but without putting it out would be quite useless. I mean, it's less effective, let's say. So here I have a book, so I will just wipe off all the written explanations on the board. Excuse me. Can I do it? So, usually in my class, I left all the patterns or time signals, anything important information related to the materials which students use, especially when it comes to speaking, like these ones. I don't wipe off, I don't delete, erase them usually, because sometimes when it comes to speaking practice, they often forget the written expression, written time signals on a written board, right? So I don't delay that, just let it be, so students can take a look at it every time they need it. So I don't say every time I am needing it, because we use simple present. Every time, we're talking about every time again. Simple present always. Next, so the activities will be filling a gap, sentence transformations, and general truth. That's it, because we actually have some. I have a book. It's called Top Grammar: A Guide to Write English. So I use this for the pattern just now. I use it, so the pattern, the form, and all kind of written on a board. Okay, so let's say, okay, I'm not gonna write all the sentences here, just rub it up. Like the filling the gap would be like the train leaves, let's say, arrive at 20 or at 8, let's say, okay, at 8 p.m. tonight. Remember, if you want to use that verb, fine. If you don't want to use that verb because it's clear enough, it doesn't matter. Like tonight here, whether I want to put it away or not, doesn't matter, because we know that the train arrived at 8 p.m. So filling the gap would be like students would guess whether it use okay, they're going to concentrate on the verb because we're talking about simple present, right? So the one would be delayed here or would be put away is arrive. So filling the gap. Whether the students want to go for arrive with a simple present, past tense, or probably progressive form, simple present. So sentence transformation. Let's say she speaking English fluently. We're talking talking about an ability. Okay, so one of the problems of English learners, they sometimes mix up all the sentences. There's the progressive geared to simple present gathers some moral senses, right? Because we actually have 16 sentences and broken down into some explanation, and it's quite complicated. So, just speaking English fluently, it's about the ability. And I refer to the students as well that the ability use simple present form. So every time you talking about ability, we use simple present like I can eat banana. I can eat three plates of rice. Let's say I can eat a bunch of bananas. I can eat a bunch of apples, something like that. So you can say I can be eating or I am eating a bunch of bananas or something like that. Okay. So that's the practice itself. After moving on to the practice, now, the practice actually in form of worksheets or handouts. So I'm going to pass out all the worksheets to the students to work on a practice of filling in the sentence transformations and anything like that. And it's actually one more graph we got. And one more. The technique that I use in simple present action, the triple PPP, presentation, production, and practice. Okay, so we've done presentation. Now we're coming to the end of practice. Now we're coming to the end. Sorry. Now we come to the production. So I just need to have a little bit of time here to wipe off all the whiteboard again. I think it would be like more than 7 minutes. I'm sorry, miss, because it takes more than I thought it would be. So maybe it's too long. I don't know. Okay, next, production. So what students gonna do in production session? So in productions, they after having the worksheet, the handouts, the dons, and then we talk about to discuss the students' answer. And in discussing or in talking about the practice or the field students do on a paper, I usually switch the students' paper, like students A's paper to number to students next to him, where it's right or left, and they correct it one by one. I usually raise out point at one student, what's the answer of this one? Can you read it out loud? So what the function of asking students read it out loud is to practice their reading practice as well, pronunciations. But remember, pronunciations, I don't correct them in the middle of their speaking. I usually have my own notes, like a small little note to write down their mispronunciations, misgrammar, anything kind of like error mistakes in English especially. And I just write it down and talking about it later on at the end of the class, at the end of the day. And student will come and oh, I did it correctly. Okay, I did it a little bit wrong, something like that. So correct students at the end of the class, not in the middle of the class. Next, productions. I usually go for students' productions. I tell students to count up one by one, like, okay, start from you, start from students A, count from 1, and students who can carry on, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. After counting up, after all students get a number, I ask them, find your partner whether you are an odd number, an exact number, like 1 to number 3 to number 2, go for the number 4 and find their own partner. Okay, after finding their own partner, they've been impaired by now. After being impaired, I asked the students to do kind of like interview sections, right? Asking about the habitual habits, ability, any kind of related topic that I use simple present. That's the thing that I do. And after that, I give the students prior about like, oh yeah, this section will be held at the same time, so the class will be a little bit noise, but it's okay as long as they practice this speaking. The understanding of the simple present itself is a really important one, and yeah, this would take like 15 minutes. It could be more, where depends on students' interest, whether they're really interested, because some students are really interested in talking a lot, so talkative. Some people are passive, it doesn't matter, but you know, sometimes passive become talkative, depends on their personality. After the productions, after having all these conversations, all this interview, students take turn. Okay, one student take turn part, like I've done 10 minutes, and then my part will take 10 minutes as well, something like that. After the productions, we're coming to the end of the class by summarizing, and summarizing like, okay, I wipe up this one. Let's say I wipe up this one, and I go to the center of the class. I ask the students, okay, everyone, when do you usually simple present? And some students would raise their hands and I say, me, sir. I'd say usually, very good. That's the time signals. And what else? And some students say ability and something like that. Okay, so students will take turns. You know, they kind of like competitive Q&A, competitive quiz, where it's interesting to the students. Depends on the teacher, how I make the atmosphere of the class. So it depends on the teacher itself. So I put it away. And after having the productions, we're coming to the assessment. So how do I assess the students is by analyzing the improvement, right? So we need assessment is about improvement. So I usually, sometimes, I'm being repetitive. I've been using it usually a lot of times, so I'm gonna use normally. So I normally come up with an idea by telling the students that they have to come into the class another day and make come up with a story, probably. Let's say come up with a story or news related to simple present by using simple present again. But any kind of story, a news related to this one, the simple present, by using simple present. Okay, sometimes they can tell about the news of the coronavirus up to now, the coronavirus nowadays, how the vaccines work, or something like that. And it could be story. The story about themselves, the story about the relatives, the acquaintance, or something like that. It could be the family, friends. Okay, so that's the assessment of the students. And oh yeah, this could also actually be an extra class where for the students to work out of the classroom hour. That would be awesome. And yeah, we're coming in to the video. Thanks very much. I hope it's useful.